Kazakhstan's most famous reporter is back in Borat's sequel, which just came out Friday, October 23rd on Amazon Prime Video. So in the movie, there's a bit of a controversial scene at the end of the film in which Rudy Giuliani, Donald Trump's lawyer, is featured in an interview with Cohen's co-star Maria Bakalova conducting a fake interview about coronavirus. So I have the clip here from the movie. I'm going to show you first the part where she questions him about the coronavirus. And let's see what Giuliani has to say in response to her questions here. And keep in mind, this is back in July, so over the summer in New York.
Probably in a rough estimate, how many lives President Trump saved?
I'd say he saved 1 million lives. It would have been 1 million more had he waited that month, the way the Democrats would have done.
Yeah.
But he acted swiftly. He acted before anybody. In fact, even his own advisors, some of them advised him not to do it.
Yeah.
I'm good. You're a little bit. This is good.
Yeah. It's always good. Never been in front of the camera. I've always been behind of the camera, but today something with this.
I think you're going to look pretty good.
We will see.
You're going to look pretty
But
good.
it's because of you.
Well, thank you.
I really feel like Melania right now.
Well, you're doing very well. You're going to look pretty
Sorry to interrupt, Mayor.
Sound problem. I think we cancel interview.
Mm-hmm.
So Sacha Baron Cohen comes in as a sound guy in disguise, and he interrupts the interview. So the actress, Maria Bakalova, she gets rid of Cohen and then comes back, apologizes to Giuliani. You could see in that first part they kind of shared some drinks a little bit. They were getting nice and comfortable with each other. I mean, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. So afterwards, when she comes back and apologizes, she then invites Giuliani into the bedroom, which a lot of people are saying, well, I mean, come on, man, you shouldn't have gone into the bedroom. It's a little bit questionable for you as somebody in such a high position to be going into hotel bedrooms alone with young reporters. And that's definitely a good point. Let's see what actually happens here in this next clip. And you can decide for yourselves, of course, whether or not you think that his behavior is appropriate or inappropriate.
I'm so sorry. That's
Relax,
horrible.
Sit. Okay.
I'm so sorry for that. Really, apologize.
Apology accepted. No problem.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah. Thank you again for giving me this time. Shall we have a drink in the bedroom?
What happened? There you go, my dear.
Okay.
There you be good. You can give me your phone number and your address.
Should we slip your jacket?
Okay.
Put down your crumb.
Oh.
She's 15. She's too old for you.
Why are you dressed like
She's my daughter. Please, take me instead.
Okay, so that's the controversial clip of Giuliani in the new Borat film. Kind of want to break it down a little bit before we get into the interviews afterwards. So you can see while they're still in the main room of the hotel room, she kind of touches his leg a little bit. And you could say, well, that's not really a big deal, but in my opinion, that kind of signals to Giuliani that touching is okay. Now, as to what level of touching, obviously there are still barriers to that. You can't just, that's not like a license to just start ripping her clothes off and throwing her on the bed. But at the very least, it kind of, I think, signals to him that there's some kind of rapport established, like a friendly rapport at the very least. So moving on to when they actually get into the bedroom, you can see that he helps her take her microphone off. And then he sits on the bed, asks her for her phone number and address, or says that she can give him her phone number and address. And she starts to take his microphone off and says something like, shall we remove your jacket, or shall we take off your jacket? And he has his shirt untucked a little bit when she does this. You can see in the footage if you watch it closely. So after that, he kind of lays back, reclines, so he's laying down on the bed, and he reaches his hand into his pants. He's saying that it was to tuck his shirt back in. It's really hard to definitively say, no pun intended. But I don't know. I mean, you saw the footage for yourself. You decide, what do you think he was doing? Do you think he was reaching into his pants to adjust his shirt? Or was he adjusting something else in his pants? It's hard to definitively say. It does honestly look like, the more I look at this, it looks more and more like the footage was doctored to be kind of exaggerated and make it look worse than it actually is. I mean, if the worst thing out of all of this is the pat on the lower back, I mean, which is kind of inappropriate for sure, but if that's the worst that there is out of this, well, that's not too terrible. Creepy, but not terrible. So yeah, obviously Sacha Baron Cohen comes in, starts yelling, "She's 15, she's too old for you." I don't think that he was under any sort of impression that she was underage. I'm pretty sure, from what it sounds like, from the information that I've gathered, that she was posing as a Bulgarian journalist, so he thought it was a legit interview. I don't imagine he would have agreed to do an interview with some, random 15-year-old. That doesn't really make sense to me. But moving on, Sacha Baron Cohen did an interview along with his co-star Maria Bakalova with Good Morning America. So I have that clip here as well. He responded to some of Giuliani's tweets saying that the footage was essentially complete bullshit. So let's see what Sacha Baron Cohen has to say.
He said the Borat video is a complete fabrication. I was tucking in my shirt after taking off the recording equipment. At no time was I ever inappropriate. If Sacha Baron Cohen implies otherwise, he is a stone-cold liar. Sacha, how do you respond to Giuliani's tweet? And feel free, Maria, to chime in afterwards.
Well, I would say that if the president's lawyer found what he did there appropriate behavior, then heaven knows what he's done with other female journalists in hotel rooms. And I just urge everyone to watch the movie. It is what it is. He did what he did, and make your own mind up. It was pretty clear to us.
All right, so like he says, make your own mind up. I completely agree with that. And he makes some interesting points about, if that's what he considers appropriate, then what else is he doing with other reporters? And I don't want to get into any sort of speculation, but those are interesting points. So he goes on to tell us a little bit more about how he was in a kind of makeshift hideaway somewhere nearby, keeping an eye on the situation, making sure that the main actress here was safe in the situation. So let's hear a little bit about that, and also hear about how Maria Bakalova felt in the situation and whether or not she felt comfortable or if she felt unsafe.
Well, I was actually, I was quite concerned for her during the scene. We'd built a hideaway that I was hiding in during the entire scene. So I was monitoring it by text, but, it's my responsibility as a producer as well to ensure that the lead actor is looked after.
Well, Maria, did you feel
yes.
unsafe? Because it sounds like you were implying that you did.
No, that's what I'm saying, that I've always felt safe with our team, with our crew, with Sacha in my corner. I actually never felt that I've been in danger. That's why I'm lucky, because I had them.
So I actually wanted to go and check the tweets and see exactly what Giuliani said, make sure it was all 100% legit. So I'm going to read the full tweet and see what he said here. So the Borat video is a complete fabrication. I was tucking in my shirt after taking off the recording equipment. At no time before, during, or after the interview was I ever inappropriate. If Sacha Baron Cohen implies otherwise, he is a stone-cold liar. So that's the part that they showed on Good Morning America there in the clip that I just showed. But he also continues and replies to his tweet there and goes on to say, in fact, the New York Post today reports, it looks to me like an exaggeration through editing. As soon as I realized it was a setup, I called the police, which has been noted in THR article on July 8th. So I actually was able to find the report from the New York Post that said it looks like an exaggeration through editing. And I believe it was the reporter. Let me find the name here. Just one moment. Yeah, Johnny Olegzinski from the New York Post. He was the one who said that. So, I mean, maybe it does look a little bit doctored. There's definitely some footage missing. But as to what sort of context that would add, it's really impossible for anybody but, the crew of the film to know for sure. So there's still a couple more parts to the tweets. So he also said, this is an effort to blunt my relentless exposure of the criminality and depravity of Joe Biden and his entire family. Deadline Hollywood reports CIA had a distribution screening in September where there was no mention of the scene holding any importance. We are preparing much bigger dumps off of the hard drive from hell of which Joe Biden will be unable to defend or hide from. I have the receipts. So those are the tweets, and you heard the interview from Good Morning America. I mean, it's nice to hear at least that Bakalova was feeling comfortable and felt confident in Sacha Baron Cohen, as well as the crew of the film, to keep her safe in that situation. That's comforting to hear, I suppose, at the very least, and consolation to a weird situation all around. And also, I definitely have to respect the fact that Sacha Baron Cohen is willing to go the extra mile to protect everybody that's working for him. It's hard not to respect that sort of thing. But moving on to Giuliani's side of the story, I want to go into his actual response. I have some audio here from what he said on his daily show that he does with WABC AM. So this is from October. This is his account of what happened.
I went to an interview, seemed like a legitimate interview. I did the interview with the young woman who was new to interviewing, and I was being kind to her. At one point, she explained to me some problem she had. I actually prayed with her. And then I had to leave, and I had my jacket on. I was fully clothed at all times. And I had to take off the electronic equipment. And when the electronic equipment came off, some of it was in the back, and my shirt came a little out, although my clothes were entirely on. I leaned back, and I tucked my shirt in. And at that point, they have this picture they take, which looks doctored, but in any event, I'm tucking my shirt in. I assure you that's all I was doing. When I get up, she says something about, do I want a massage? I realize now that this is a setup, and I call my security guy, Brian, who's right outside. I said, Brian, come in here, and then all of a sudden, crazy Sacha Baron Cohen runs in with a cape on, and he's yelling and screaming all kinds of stupid stuff. I said, Brian, very calmly say, Brian, call the police. We walk out. Police come. Sacha Baron Cohen is running away, The last time I saw him, he was running down Madison Avenue, I think with his underwear on and a cape on his back. And not only did he run away, but every single one of his crew ran away. And they left, I don't know, $1 million worth of equipment behind. And I reported it to the police, and they ran away.
So that was his account that he just made on October 21st, shortly before the movie came out. And I don't know if everybody had seen the footage quite yet, because obviously the movie wasn't released publicly. But there were some images from the scene leaked, and I think that was maybe what he was responding to. Now, back in July when the incident actually happened, Giuliani also spoke on his daily show about the incident, and he gave a very similar retelling of the events. So I have that clip here as well in an audio clip. So I'm going to play that, and you can hear just how similar it is. And then I'll talk about, maybe what that means exactly about how honest he's being about his side of the story.
It seemed all very legit. I went upstairs, but then there was this reporter. She's rather young and kind of inexperienced and seemed very nervous, but she got through the questions. And then we were about to leave, and all of a sudden, this guy comes rushing into the room. He was dressed in a bikini, multicolored bikini, I may add. He walks in, he's yelling and screaming.
What's he yelling? Like, what's he saying?
He's yelling things like, I do not approve of this marriage. I do not approve of this marriage. Like I'm going to marry this girl or something. I do not approve of this. He's some kind of a. She was Bulgarian, she claimed, and I guess he was supposed to be her Bulgarian father. Because I got the rest of the script that they never pulled off.
Wait, you recognized him though, right?
No, not right away. I didn't
really?
recognize him right away. I just recognized an idiot running through the room. And I just yelled out to Brian Kensick, who's my security guy for 15 years and a detective. And I said, Brian, call the cops. He said, what? I said, call the police. The minute I said the word police, this guy who came in like a screaming, running banshee turns around immediately, and he takes off. Woof, right out. She takes off. Woof. And then I look out the door, and all these doors start to open. It must be the crew, right? Because it was a movie. Oh, it must have been about 8 people start running down the halls. They left us with probably $1 million worth of equipment.
I was just thinking, all the cameras, all the lights.
All the cameras.
So that is his account from July. As you can hear, it's very similar. He leaves out a lot of the details, and he says something very different from what we see Sacha Baron Cohen actually yelling in the movie. He says something about marrying his daughter. When we hear in the movie, he says something about, oh, she's 15, she's too old for you, as we could see from the previous clips. So what does it mean that his statements are so similar from July and October? Well, you could argue that the fact that it's so similar means that maybe it's rehearsed. But you could also argue, on the other hand, that the fact that it's so similar suggests that maybe he's telling the truth. So it's really hard to definitively say or make any sort of conclusions based on those two statements. One thing I notice is that in the October statement, he says that, let me try to remember here, I think that he says, one way or the other, he says in one statement that he called the security guard in after Sacha Baron Cohen entered the room, and in another statement he says that he called security before Sacha Baron Cohen entered the room, when Maria Bakalova mentioned a massage. So he said that's when he called security. I believe that was in October that he said that he called security before Cohen entered the room. So I noticed that inconsistency. You can kind of decide for yourselves again how to interpret that. So there are just a couple of points that I wanted to go over in conclusion. So there's a question of, was his behavior appropriate? Well, let's look at it from a legal perspective. So legally, there was obviously no crimes being committed here. It was perfectly legal. There's nothing wrong with two consenting adults, as inappropriate or immoral as it may or may not be, to engage in consensual relations in a hotel room, like it or not. Now, that brings us to the next question: is it morally acceptable? And that is much more subjective. I think it would really depend on who you ask. A lot of people would definitely argue that it would be inappropriate for a lawyer, when doing an interview with a young journalist, especially the lawyer for the President of the United States, it wouldn't be very good for them to sleep with that reporter. It wouldn't be a good look. Now, I don't think Giuliani is married. I'm pretty sure he got divorced. But still, it does kind of seem a little bit weird if he was to actually have done something with this person, if it wasn't a setup, a staged situation. So the other point I wanted to talk about was, well, the edited footage. What was missing from the edits? And you can clearly see that there's a couple of parts that are edited. For example, when Sacha Baron Cohen starts screaming she's 15, Giuliani starts getting up from the bed, and you can go back and look at this. He gets up, he starts sitting up from the laying down position, and then by the time Sacha Baron Cohen gets to the Giuliani and Bakalova, he's already standing by the wall across from the bed. So he's standing up, standing near the wall, and afterwards he quickly leaves the room while Bakalova and Cohen are arguing back and forth about nonsense. So there's that, and then there's also a point that I saw from another YouTube channel in which he mentioned they might have been compiling different camera angles. There's 3 different camera angles in the room, and they're putting them together in a way that makes them overlap, which gives the effect of Rudy Giuliani looking like he has his hands in his pants longer than they actually are. Now, I don't really think it would be a huge difference, maybe like 2 or 3 seconds if I had to guess. But it is a little bit of a difference, and maybe that 2 or 3 seconds can be the difference between, tucking your pants in and looking like you're doing something else. So it's hard to say, and I saw a couple of articles suggesting that there were hidden cameras, but I mean, I have an image here that I screen grabbed from the scene, and you can clearly see that the camera equipment is very visible in the room. So that again kind of makes me wonder, well, would Rudy Giuliani really be stupid enough, considering his experience and the career that he has had, to engage in that kind of behavior when there's literally camera equipment facing the bed? It just seems kind of ridiculous. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So I definitely think maybe it was exaggerated to look worse than it is. Now, do I think Rudy Giuliani was behaving like a saint in this situation? No. But he's human at the end of the day. So was it acceptable behavior? I'll let the viewer decide that for themselves. Personally, I don't think it was too terrible. I just wanted to close off by saying that he definitely could have been more cautious, especially, like I mentioned earlier, considering his job as being lawyer of the President of the United States. And it was irresponsible of him to go into the bedroom alone with such a young reporter, because, I mean, if there was no cameras, if there wasn't any sort of recording equipment in the hotel room, well, what could she have potentially said had happened if it wasn't a setup from a film? What if it was a setup for some kind of extortion? It could have been a lot worse for Giuliani, for sure. So like I said, take a look at the footage yourself. I have the clips here, the interviews, the statements, the actual footage from the movie. Take a look at it, decide for yourself. Let me know in the comments what you think. I'm curious. Anyways, I'm hoping to release another podcast soon about staying healthy over the winter. The COVID cases are increasing in a lot of places, so everybody stay safe. I'm going to be talking about staying physically and mentally healthy. It's coming soon. Take care.